I'm about to introduce Mike Lovatt, who we're delighted to have here this evening. When I do, I know that we're all on mute, but I still think, trying to make this as concert-like as possible, that we should give him a really big round of applause. And certainly those with your cameras on will at least be able to see two hands coming together. So Mike is one of the biggest names in the British studio world. You would have heard him many, many times, some of you maybe even without knowing, in TV shows, hit records, soundtracks and films such as James Bond, Harry Potter, and recently the Avengers Endgame, in which he did an amazing solo, if you haven't seen that. He's often described, and quite rightly so, as one of the best trumpet players in the world. So it is my great, great pleasure to introduce to you this evening, Mr. Mike Lovatt.
Hi. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm going to put my glasses on because it looks like there's like 4 pages of you all. I want to see you all. It says there's 85 participants. That's amazing. That's brilliant. I'm looking at you all now. I'm going through all the pages on my laptop here. That's amazing.
Brilliant.
How fantastic is that? There's some people on the 4th page that have just got names on, but they're there. So that's brilliant.
As I mentioned, sorry, Mike, this is 3 music services come together. So Warwickshire, Coventry and Solihull Music Service. So we've got students from all 3 music services. And once again, I'd just like to thank you for being here this evening.
No, it's lovely to be here.
We obviously want to go back to kind of the beginning and how you got into music and things. But just before we do that, I thought with it being such an extraordinary year with everything that's happened with COVID and so on, I thought the first question I would just like to ask you, Mike, is how has this year been for you?
Well, it's been very strange. The last gig that I actually did was last year, 2020, and it was March the 14th. And the reason I remember that gig very plainly is because it was the last one that I did. It was at the Cadogan Hall in London, and it was with a fantastic singer and broadcaster, Claire Teal. And I'm lucky enough to play in her she calls it a mini big band. And we did the gig there, and the very next day I drove up to Staffordshire, which is where I'm from originally, so not too far away from that area that you're all in. And I went up there because it was my dad's 90th birthday, and he was in a care home, and they said that they would still hold this little birthday party for him, even though that this thing, COVID, was sort of starting to take on a big thing for everybody in the UK. And we had this party, which in a room in the care home, which only we could get in from a little side door, so nobody else came into contact with us. We had the party, and I drove home that evening. The next day, I was supposed to go to do a show in the West End called Book of Mormon. I was doing a deputy in there, and I drove into London because I thought, hang on, I think it'll be safer driving in if this virus is going to be something that's going to be easily caught. I won't go on public transport. So I drove in, and I thought, it's easy to park here. There was many places there was loads of spaces in the West End, especially around Piccadilly where I was. And I walked up to the theatre with my instruments and got to the stage door, and the lady at the stage door said, "Oh, have you not had a message? The theatre's gone dark. In fact, most of the theatres in the West End are going dark from tonight." Going dark means that they're going to close, basically. And so that was the start of it for me. The next day I was supposed to go up to Scotland to do a whole week at the Scottish Conservatoire. But, of course, that was cancelled as well. They got in touch and said, "Don't come tomorrow, it's not happening." So that was the start of it. And 3 weeks, nearly 4 weeks later, sadly, my dad got COVID in the home and he passed away from it. So the start of this whole pandemic was a real bad one for me, and COVID was real right from the beginning. So last year, the first part of it was really coming to terms with losing my father, who was really my inspiration. He was a music teacher, and he inspired me from a very early age. Music was in the house the whole time. But so, yeah, getting over him, and I actually didn't touch the trumpet for about 2 months. And then eventually I thought, I've got to start doing something. And I decided to play a piece of music and record it. It was actually a trumpet quartet written by a guy called Kenny Wheeler, and I spent about 2 months recording this thing. It was really hard to get together, but I did it. It's up on YouTube if you want to have a listen to it at some point. It's called it's a Kenny Wheeler trumpet quartet. If you put that in Mike Lovatt on YouTube, you will get it come up, and we've done a nice video with it, and I'm very proud of it. And it was done as a tribute not only to my dad, but also to a guy called Ryan Anthony, who was the principal trumpet of the which orchestra was it in America? I've just forgotten what that was, but anyway, he's a principal trumpet, and he'd started a charity called Cancer Blows, and he sadly passed away as well. So it was a little tribute to those two people. But that got me back into my playing again, and since that time, I've tried to keep on doing these little projects. I shouldn't really say this to you, but I'm not a very good practicer. I'm not, I do practice, of course I do, but because I've got to do to keep things going. But one way I practice is by playing some things, and then if there's maybe some of the things that I have to play, some of the technical things that I have to play, maybe I'm a bit rusty on something, so then I will work at something. Say if it's a tonguing thing, fast tonguing, triple tonguing, or double tonguing, or whatever, and I haven't done any of that for a while, I'll go back and do that. But yeah, I've kept on recording a few things, and I've actually done a few things professionally, so for proper paid purposes, doing recordings from home. I work with a guy called Seth MacFarlane, who I'm sure some of you know who he is. He's a fantastic, talented guy. Not only is an amazing animator and cartoonist, and very, very funny guy.
Seth was the guy that did Family Guy, wasn't he, Mike?
That's it, Family Guy, yeah. And he recently did a live action TV series, like a sci-fi series, and that's fantastic as well. But Seth gets me to play on some of his recordings, and he's recorded in London. But during the lockdown, he decided to do some duets, and he asked me to play lead trumpet. So they send me the bass and the drums in a file, wing it over to me by email. I put it into my Logic session. I record the lead trumpet part, and then I send it back, and then they get 3 other trumpet players in LA to add their parts to mine, and then 4 trombone players to add their parts to that, and then 5 saxes to add their parts to that, and then he puts it out, and he normally puts it out on Instagram and YouTube, and we've done probably about 10 tracks all in all. So those have kept me going. And at the moment, I've just started. Actually, yesterday, the bass player put his part down. I'm doing a fantastic big brass ensemble arrangement of tunes from Carmen, the opera, arranged by a guy called Colin Skinner, who's a great friend of mine. And we're putting that together into it'll be a YouTube video. And I've got 6 trumpet players, 4 trombones, 2 tubas, 6 French horns, tune percussion, piano, bass, drums, and guitar, 2 harps, and myself playing some solos, and that's going to be on YouTube. I reckon it'll probably be in about 3 months' time, because it's quite a big project. The piece is actually 15 minutes long, so there's a lot of me sending bits to people and getting them to put their parts on and doing that. So that's been my way of keeping my motivation going, along with my teaching and my classes, and which have all been online, just like tonight is. And we've all learnt these ways of coping and being able to keep things going through with the technology. We're all learning something. I mean, I'm one of these people that can actually remember when there wasn't such a thing as a mobile phone, and I can remember when there wasn't really such thing as computers as well. And of course, you've all grown up with these things, but for me, I've had to sort of learn as I've got older with these. I remember my dad, he got a computer, and he got Sibelius, and the next thing he's saying to me, "Oh, I'm doing some arrangements on Sibelius." I said, "Dad, what's that, Sibelius?" And he was actually ahead of me.
And it does seem, at the moment they keep saying this term, the new normal, but I think what's really interesting is just how adaptable everybody has become and had to become as well.
Yeah.
And we're very sorry to hear about the personal loss at the start of COVID. So it's affected both personally and professionally for yourself. But
Yeah.
let's hope, because I imagine when you went to that theatre, you never thought, a year later we'd still be in this mess. I know I certainly didn't.
No, absolutely.
Let's hope we start to see the end of it soon. Mike, I know from chatting to you before what an inspiration your dad was. And the next question I was going to ask was going back to the beginning about how you got into music and kind of who influenced you to start playing the trumpet.
Yeah, well, like I said, my dad was a music teacher, and he began teaching in the 1950s in a secondary school in North Staffordshire. And when he started, he really wanted to try and get music to be something which everybody did. It wasn't just for special people, it was for anybody that showed any kind of interest. He would back them up. And one of the things he wanted to do was to get a school orchestra together. And in those days, the school that he was at, no peripatetics came to teach instrumental lessons at that school. And so he decided that he would buy some instruments. So he bought a clarinet, he bought a flute, he bought a trumpet, he bought a trombone, he bought loads of instruments. And so when I was born, all these instruments were lying around the house. The reason he bought the instruments was because he wanted to be able to learn how to play them himself well enough to teach children. So he did that. He famously was late on numerous occasions meeting my mum when they were first going out together, and she'd say, why are you late, Ken? And he'd go, oh, sorry, I was just practicing the flute in the bath. And that's the kind of guy he was. He once he got hold of something, he wouldn't let go of it. And so I think I've probably taken that on. But so there was a trumpet in the house, and I first of all was drawn to the trombone. And like all small people, your arms aren't quite long enough to reach that sixth position, are they, on the trombone? So I decided that the trumpet was maybe the first point of call. So I used to pick this trumpet up and try and make a sound out of it. And it was normally when my dad was doing some other teaching. He'd teach privately as well. So he wasn't around to go, actually, Mike, this is what you do. And I remember going shopping with my mum, and the first time that a supermarket opened in the town that we lived in. And we went into this supermarket, and right near the door, the front door of the supermarket, was these carousels. These wire racks that could twist around. You see cards on them sometimes in newsagents and stuff. And on these carousels were records. Now, for the young people, the records are these plastic discs that you put on a turntable, and you put this arm across, and you put it on and it plays. And it's magic. It's amazing. Anyway, there's the thing with records is you got these amazing covers, all these fantastic designs. And there was one record at the front of one of these racks, and it was this guy with a trumpet, and he was stood there, he was holding the trumpet up in the air like this, and he was, like in stage lighting, and all the lighting was splashing off the gold plate or whatever it was of the trumpet. And it was like magic to me. And I thought, I want to be him. And I said to my mum, can I have that? Can I have that record? Can you buy me that record? Please, please. I've been really good. Can you buy me that record? And I remember this record was 99 pence. And it was a trumpet player called Eddie Calvert. And he was known as the man with the golden trumpet. And he played things like... Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White, and a tune called Oh Mine Papa. So, misspent youth, you see, knowing all these tunes. So, I got this record. My mum bought it for me, and I rushed home and I put it on the record player. And not only did I do that, but I rushed to get the trumpet from the little cupboard that we had with all these instruments in. I got the trumpet out, and I put the record on, and I'm like miming to him. I am Eddie Calvert at that moment. And eventually I started to try and play along to the record. I mean, it was all the wrong way round, really. I should have been like, learning how to play a middle G first or something, but instead I was just trying to play along. I was pressing any old valves down, bending the notes, trying to get the same notes as him. And that, for me, was the start. And a couple of years ago, my dear mum passed away, and a friend of mine, he sent me a card of condolence. And he's a bit of a clever guy, he's a graphic designer and stuff. And he sent me this card, he printed it all out himself and designed it himself. And hang on, something's just come up on my screen. A poll.
See if we can put that down. Okay.
Yeah, and sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, my mum passed away, and this guy sent me this card of condolence, and on the front of this card was that very same picture of that album that my mum bought me when I was like 8 or 9, and inside the card he put, "Your mum didn't realise the significance of spending that 99p. What a good investment that was."
Absolutely.
And so all the things that you guys are doing, and the time that you're investing, and the support from your parents, the support that they're giving you, that they're investing their time in and their money in, is a fantastic thing for you guys. It doesn't matter whether you're going to become a professional musician or you're not. This is something which you can carry with you for the rest of your life. This is real. This is what makes people. This is what makes the world go round. This is what makes communities. This is what makes passion and love and everything. All the things that we should have as human beings, music has in it. And by playing music, you get to experience that firsthand. So that's great that you're doing this. So
Absolutely.
Keep it up.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, and really well said. And it's interesting you say, Eddie Calvert, that the man with the golden trumpet, and I happen to know that your own trumpet is gold plated. So following many years on, maybe it's a subconscious thing, but from Eddie Calvert passing it on to Mike Lovatt, maybe.
Yeah, I should have rigged up some lights so you could see the effect.
That's it. Yes. Well, next time you're on stage.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned Eddie was an inspiration for you when you were little, and I think it's really important for the younger people who are listening today to try and listen to as many of these artists as possible. But is there anybody else specifically that you listened to growing up that really inspired you, or anybody that you would recommend the students today to listen to?
Yeah, well, it's listening is something which I've always done because, music from that age really just grabbed me. And every day I used to come home from school and, okay, I might have some homework to do, but if I didn't have any homework to do, or if I thought, I'll do the homework later, I would run. I had a little record player in my bedroom, and I'd run upstairs and I'd find a record and I'd put it on and I'd try and play along with it. And that helped not only develop my ear, but it also helped develop my different ideas of style, and the different styles that, as a musician, you're required to play in, or the style that you get together yourself from listening to all these many different styles. So there's various players that kind of popped out to me in this. I mean, I used to play along with everything. I'd play along with Bert Kaempfert, who was like a German band leader, a bit like James Last, who would play sort of middle of the road, easy listening music. So I'd play along with him and his band. I'd play along with the Sid Lawrence Orchestra and play some Glenn Miller tunes. I'd play along with the London Philharmonic Orchestra, and I'd try and emulate one of the first trumpets out of that orchestra playing Richard Strauss. I'd play along with I think at the time actually there was a hit record with the guy who did the Chihuahua sound, Herb Alpert, and he sort of had a comeback record. It was called Rise, I think, and I used to play along with that. So all sorts of things, but some players really grabbed me, and one was a fantastic trumpet player called it was Kenny Baker, and Kenny Baker was a British trumpet player who started off life in brass bands and eventually became one of the top jazz soloists within the Ted Heath Orchestra. The Ted Heath Orchestra was a British big band, which probably was the top British big band in the heyday of the coming out of the swing band era into the 1950s, and Kenny was in that band. He then went on to become one of the top session players in London and the London scene, and became a member of the band which became known as the Fort Knox Band at Elstree, where they record Strictly Come Dancing. Any of you have seen that? There used to be a band there, and Elstree was a TV studios for ITV mainly, and there was a band run by a drummer called Jack Parnell, who had also come out of the Ted Heath Band. And Jack Parnell was the musical director. Kenny Baker was one of the trumpet players, and you will have heard him play on, the Muppet Show. Any of you seen the Muppets? There's some good playing in that. There's a drummer called Ronnie Verrill, who was the drummer at ATV at Elstree, and he was the guy that was Animal in the Muppets. And there's a wonderful clip on YouTube. Have a look at it of Animal doing a drum battle with God, my memory's bad tonight. Drum battle with the great drummer, Traps, the boy wonder drummer. The one of the greatest drummers ever been, Buddy Rich. There you go.
Buddy Rich, yes, yeah, great.
Buddy Rich. So you see this drum battle between Buddy Rich and Animal. Have a look at it. It's great. It's really good.
I've not seen that myself. Sounds fantastic.
It's really good. And Ronnie Verrill was the guy that played the drums for that. But Kenny Baker was just such a wonderful character. And eventually, years and years later, I was doing a trial. I auditioned for the BBC Big Band as a permanent, when it was a permanent staff band, and I got a trial, which means you get tried out for a few weeks, and you might do some work at the studios at BBC in London, at Maida Vale Studios, and do some outside broadcasts. And one of the outside broadcasts we did was down at Worthing Pavilion on the pier there, and Kenny Baker was the guest artist. And I'll never forget, we were doing our rehearsal, and I didn't realise he was already there. Down in the dressing rooms, which is right out the back of the stage, I just heard this trumpet player warming up, and it just made me, when he started to play, it just gave me tears rolling down my face, because I went straight back to my childhood playing, well, my teenage years anyway, playing in my bedroom at home with this great trumpet player. So we're going to fast forward a tiny bit now, still with Kenny Baker, and he eventually passed away. He lived in Bognor Regis on the south coast, and on this record that I originally had of him that I used to play along, there were all these fantastic tracks, and most of them were arranged by a guy called Roland Shaw, and I knew somebody that was really good friends with Roland Shaw, and I just said, when you see Roland Shaw, could you ask him if he's still got any of the arrangements that he did for Kenny Baker? And so anyway, this lady asked him, and he said, "Oh no, I don't. I think they got thrown away. Usual kind of story." Anyway, she said, "But I know Kenny's widow. I'll ask her if she's got the arrangements." So she asked Kenny's widow, Sue, and she said she didn't know, the music was in a mess, but she decided that it was time for her to pass on Kenny's music to somebody else. So I drove down to Bognor. I was invited to go down to Bognor. I drove down with my original record under my arm, well, in the car, and I gave her some albums that I'd played on and stuff to show her that I really was a trumpet player and I wasn't just pretending. And when I got there, I was absolutely bursting to go to the loo, because it'd been quite a long drive. And I said, "Hello, yeah, I'm Mike. Can I use your toilet, please?" So she said, "Yes, it's just over there. Nice big sort of detached bungalow in Bognor Regis." And I went into this big sort of downstairs bathroom, and I opened the door, and I just stopped in my tracks, and my jaw hit the floor, because all over the walls was all this Kenny Baker memorabilia. Kenny Baker at the London Palladium. Kenny Baker doing this. Kenny Baker doing that. Kenny Baker with Dizzy Gillespie. Kenny Baker, it was just incredible. It's like Aladdin's cave. Wow. So I'll never forget that. But I went into the garage and I started looking through all this music. I didn't find the music I was looking for. But in the end, she just said, "Just make sure your car's back right up to the garage, because there's a lot of music there. Put it all in your car and take it away." So I've got a storeroom here with most of the Kenny Baker library. that existed, but still, sadly, no Roland Shore arrangements.
Wow.
So fast forward about 6 or 7 years on from that, and I was celebrating a birthday with a 0 in it, and I won't tell you which one, but anyway, one of my great friends, Colin Skinner, amazing musician and arranger, he turned up at my house for a little do we were having, and he said, "Happy birthday, Mike, as your present." And there's this big sort of landscape-sized plastic sort of a folder box, and I opened it up, and all the original scores with Kenny's handwriting on them and everything were all in this box. And that was an amazing moment. So that was a long story, but it just brings it all round and brings it real. So
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
one of the things I'd say to all of you, if you really want to do something, if you think, I can't do that, just know that anybody can do it. Anybody can, but you've just got to really try. If you really want something, you can do it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. I know if we take it back to, you've seen the Eddie Calvert record and you've gone home and practiced trying to imitate him. What path did you take then? Because you've mentioned about anybody can do it. I know that you yourself were faced with quite a huge adversity not that long into your own playing. So perhaps you can kind of talk about the bands that you went through when you were a youth.
Well, that's a good point to talk about that, because it was actually one September evening after I'd been playing along to my Kenny Baker record that my other love was cycling, and I decided to go out on a bike ride. I'd frequently do sort of 30 miles after school. If I wasn't playing the trumpet, I'd go on the bike. And I had a friend of mine, and he rode for the county, and I was just about really ready to start doing that and becoming involved in competition cycling. But anyway, on this particular late summer's evening, early autumn, I suppose, really, nights are starting to draw in a bit. It was about 6 p.m. and I was at a T-junction on a country lane with 9-foot high hedges either side, and my friend was next to me, and we said, "Oh, should we go right here?" And we kind of knew the roads. We didn't have a map or anything. We knew where we were going. So he said, "Yeah, let's go right there." So he went across, and for some reason I sort of stayed behind, and he went across, and he said, "Oh," and he just shouted, "I think there's a car coming." And so I waited where I was. I just stood across the crossbar. I wasn't even sitting on the saddle with my foot down. I was just stood across the crossbar. And this car was coming up from my left, so from down the hill, and he was coming up quite slowly. And I then realised, just because there was a flash at the corner of my right eye, that there was a car coming down the lane extremely fast. And basically, because it was a narrow lane, he was heading for a head-on collision with the car coming up. So he did the next best thing to avoid that, which was to decide to drive into me, which he hit me from my right. The cars in those days had little gutters on the top of the doors, the roof, to catch the rainwater, and sadly that's the bit that hit my mouth, or at least I think that's what hit my mouth. And so my top lip was lacerated from the right hand side right down, and I got up off the floor with fairly shaken up, didn't really know what had happened, and at that point I sort of went, "What's that?" And I went like that, and teeth came out of my mouth. So I was just about to take my grade 8 at that point in my life, and you can imagine what it was like. It was, okay, what do I do now? I decided I wanted to be a professional musician even then. I thought, right, okay, maybe I'll play percussion, I'll play drums, or maybe I can play saxophone. I didn't want to play a stringed instrument. I'd already tried that, and stringed instruments and me really didn't go together. So yeah, I luckily, the guy who was coming up the road, because it was in the middle of nowhere really, the guy was coming up the road, he lived very close to my mum and dad, so he said, "Right, okay, get in the car, I'm going to take you, and then we'll call for an ambulance, or you can go," because no mobile phones, or you can, your dad can take you up to the North Staffs Hospital. So that's what happened. I got home, and I'm like lying on this thing in the hospital, and I'm going like, "Where's my bike?" Because my bike was a really nice one, Where's my bike? It was all mashed up, but where is it? and apparently the guy had come down the hill. He'd put it in the back of his car, but he didn't go to the police station and sort of say that there'd been this accident until the next morning. And of course, in those days, you could kind of, well, I think you don't think you were supposed to, but you could still have a drink and drive, and there wasn't really any. And I think maybe he'd had an early evening sweet sherry, and that's the reason he left it a while before he went to the police station. Yeah. But anyway, that's what happened to me, and that's another reason that I say, anybody can do it. I thought I'd never be able to play the trumpet again, and certainly when I picked it up for the first time, about 3 months after that accident, I didn't have any teeth in the bottom, but my lip had been stitched back. I tried to play it, and it was just air. But slowly it came back, and 2 years later, I took my grade 8 and I passed with distinction. So I was very lucky that I managed to get it back together. And I had a good peripatetic teacher at the time, a guy called Ron Fargo, who's still alive, still around, and he helped me. Also, a guy called John Wilbraham helped me, who was a fantastic trumpet soloist from London, who'd been at college with my teacher, so he helped a bit as well. But I eventually auditioned for college and got into Trinity College of Music, because I wanted to go there because they had a big band, they had an orchestra, they had brass ensembles, they had the whole thing, and I wanted to be as broadly based trumpet player as possible, having a go to play everything, and I still try and do that to this day.
Yeah, well, I think that definitely comes across in your playing, Mike. It's one of the few trumpet players that can jump to any genre or any type of band and sound at home in all of them. I was just thinking about the accident that you suffered, which must have been devastating at the time. And I was thinking about other trumpet players, Maynard Ferguson, Chet Baker. I believe John Faddis had cancer of the lip as well. And wow. in a strange way, whether that made you even more determined and maybe made you practice even more than before had it not happened.
I think it did, yeah. I went through a patch of, especially months like we're in at the moment, like winter months, I would find it very painful when it was cold outside. And that's not as bad now these days, but it was then. But it made me, you're right, that it made me really determined to overcome this seeming disability, And the thing is, I think, maybe when you do have a disability like that, then you sort of overcompensate almost. And it certainly did make me practice. And I said I was a bad practicer, but I have practiced.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because that old adage that sometimes we don't know how lucky we are until we lose something. So yes, you don't have to go through something like that to be the standard you are, but the fact that someone like yourself has been through that and come out the other end should be a real inspiration for everybody else listening. So moving kind of through the college system then, and then I'm just going to take it a little bit more forward because obviously amongst many things that you do is some of the film scores. And I know recently you've done the James Bond, and I've mentioned the Avengers, the Endgame, which you did that solo in. How did you get into the film world, as it were, in these big sessions?
Okay, well, my first sort of footsteps out of college were really into... I was in a 1930s dance band called the Gramophones. We did a few things like when Pebble Mill at 1 used to be. Nobody will remember that.
I do.
But we used to do things like that and little drop-in sessions for Radio 2 and stuff like that. But I got slightly disillusioned with everything, and then I joined the Glenn Miller UK band. That was a band that was put together, and this is 1988 or something. Was put together by Ray McVeigh, who was a sort of Mecca dance band ballroom leader, and he wanted to get a band together to play Glenn Miller's music, and he got in touch with the Glenn Miller estate in New York and asked them if he could use the name. So he used to pay a yearly fee to use the Glenn Miller Orchestra. It's a trademark name, and I got a gig playing in that band on second trumpet, and second trumpet in a Miller type situation, Glenn Miller swing band, has all of the solos, and luckily, again, from playing in my bedroom along with Sid Lawrence and all the rest of it, I used to play along to all those solos. I could still play them now, And it was a good platform for me. And what happened was some people used to come and deputise in the band. And so when they did, people who might be involved in the session scene, they would hear me play. And one guy that did that was a guy called Steve Sidwell. Now, Steve has gone on to be a musical director for people like Robbie Williams, and he's done loads of recordings. He was the trumpet player for George Michael for years, and was on tour with Elton John and Rod Stewart, and Steve's done everything. He's become the MD for big royal ceremonies on the television and all the rest of it. Anyway, Steve came and depped on this thing, and he said, I'll put you forward for the Royal Variety Show. And on the Royal Variety Show in those days, you used to play everything. You play everything from accompanying, I don't know, Darcy Bussell doing some ballet to Shirley Bassey doing Goldfinger to something else, Tom Jones or something. So you would play everything. Nowadays on the Royal Variety Show, you play about 3 different things, because the rest of it's all on hard disk. It's all recorded, But you played everything then. And so I was playing next to this guy called John Barclay, who's a great trumpet player. And he heard me play, and he said, you're quite versatile, aren't you? You'd be good doing some sessions. I'll put you forward. So I did get put forward for a couple of sessions, and it's like anything. You turn up, and I was very nervous about it, but you've just got to do your best and be nice and go home. And so that's what I did, and it kind of paid off. I didn't get immediately into the session world, but I started to do the odd thing. And then there was this TV series called Des O'Connor Tonight. And there was a band in that, and a guy called Ray Monk was the musical director. And there were 2 trumpets, and it was me and a fantastic trumpet player who some of you will have heard of, called Derek Watkins. And Derek and I got on really well, and we did this series. And about halfway through the series, Derek said, next week we're doing the Bond movie. I said, it must be amazing to do that, Didn't think any more of it. Anyway, a couple of days later, I get a call from the fixer. And the fixer is the person that books all the different musicians that get put into an orchestra, a get-together orchestra, to play for a film soundtrack. And this fixer just said, Derek would like you to do the Bond movie with him. It's 10 till 6, and then 6 till 9, and then blah 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 for a whole week. And so I turned up to do this film, and it was at a studio called Air Lyndhurst, which is in Hampstead, and it's quite a famous studio because it's actually an old church. So unusually for a studio, it has windows, so you can actually see daylight. Because normally, if you go into a studio, it's like you don't know whether it's evening or morning or whatever it is, because it's dark, Well, they have lights on, but I mean, there's no windows, no natural light. So I went into this studio, and it was a great big, at least 80-piece orchestra, and packed to the rafters in there, and behind me, about 6 trombone players, and there was 4 trumpets. In fact, Steve Sidwell was one of those, John Barclay, Derek Watkins, and myself. And it was the James Bond movie called Tomorrow Never Dies. And any of you have seen that film, at the beginning or near the beginning, there's a motorcycle chase with a BMW motorbike, and I think it's in Thailand. It's probably in Bangkok or somewhere. And there's this Thai lady sitting on the back of this motorbike, and of course James Bond's actually riding the bike and steering the bike, and they end up going through all these buildings, and he flies from one window through across the street, and there's all people doing their shopping down below, And that was the very first thing, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I remember it very clearly. And I'm sat there, and the trombones behind are going, dun, 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 and there's dang, 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 and I'm thinking, wow, I'm playing on a James Bond movie. This is amazing, And I was pinching myself, and it got to the point, because actually that score was done by a guy called David Arnold. And David Arnold, that was the first film that he was involved in, and he decided to go back from the more electronic scores that had been in the previous couple of films. I think it was the first Pierce Brosnan film, but he went back to the big orchestral sound, and he used the original kind of, high trumpets, and it got to that bit where we all played da da and I remember all four of us were playing that. And normally in that situation, you'd probably have two guys playing it up the octave, the high bit, and then two guys playing it low. But I said to Derek, "What do you want me to do there? Do you want me to play? Do you want me to play it down?" He said, "Oh, no, we're all playing it up. We're all playing it up." So all four of us were going like, doing it, like, probably distorted a bit. Sorry.
That's fine.
We're all doing that, and it's given me a little shiver now just thinking about it. And coming right back, so that was really my way into the session world, the film world anyway, and coming right up to date. And it's more or less 12 months ago to the day. But I was asked to do the Bond movie, which everybody's waiting for, which is the last one that Daniel Craig has appeared in. And I was asked to play first trumpet on that, and we recorded it, like I say, about 12 months ago with the fantastic film composer Hans Zimmer. And it was the first time that he'd been involved in a Bond movie. And of course, when you record for Hans Zimmer, he's very clever at sort of playing around with sounds and things that you record. So I'm still waiting to hear what we did and how it's actually going to sound. And very funny, the other day, somebody sent me a picture of, it had obviously been done, digitally or whatever, but somebody had aged Daniel Craig. So he looked about 102. And he's in it, but he's still in a DJ and everything. He's still in a dinner jacket and a bow tie, and they put this is what Daniel Craig will look like at the premiere of the new Bond movie.
Yeah, we might be waiting a long time for that. Yeah.
So, but it was amazing, and the funny thing about that was it was in exactly the same studio, and it was like 30 years later. So. Quite amazing, really.
Must be so amazing just to be sitting in the section. For those of you that haven't heard of Derek Watkins, I urge you to go look him up. Derek was a little bit like the godfather in many ways of British trumpet players, and an absolutely incredible player and inspiration for many. So yeah, do look up Derek Watkins. You mentioned there, Mike, about these sessions. I know that they'll go on for several days and 10 till 6. By the way, what I'm doing here is looking at questions that some of the students have sent in and trying to put them into our speech as we go through. Great. But someone's asked, on a long concert, how do you keep your chops in shape? Now, I'm thinking about a 10 till 6 session over a week. What kind of things would you do to be able to keep your chops in shape over that time?
Okay, well, keeping your chops in shape is about, learning to blow properly, and notice that I say blow properly. And really, playing a brass instrument is about controlling air. And a lot of people think that it's that's that makes us play, and that we buzz our lips. But I'm not going to go into a great big sort of technical lesson here. But basically, when we play, we don't do that. We actually just go like this, and we blow air across our lips, and it's actually the resistance of the mouthpiece and the lead pipe and the rest of the instrument which sends some of the air backwards towards our lips, and so we get this wave going and the lips start vibrating, and then we get a sound. So if I blow air through my mouthpiece, and I'll just add the trumpet, I'm not going to change anything. All I'm going to do is blow air like this, so you won't hear any sound through the mouthpiece. It's just air, yeah? And you see that the note starts because the air is going backwards and forwards. If I said to one of you, right, okay, go and sit in the middle of, I don't know, a square in Solihull or Warwick or somewhere. Go and sit in the middle of that square, and I'll get all your brass players in the whole area. I'll give you some ear defenders. Preferably be somebody with long hair. And I'll get you to sit on a chair in the middle, and I'll get everybody to point their instruments at you, and I'll get them to play the loudest note they can. Now, if one of the girls has got long hair, I don't think your hair would start, wafting in the breeze like it does in the movies, But if I said to all those people, put your instruments down now, this is before COVID, of course, you won't be able to do it now. Go up to that person and blow air at them, like as hard as you would when you played that loud note. And if you all went like that, then the hair might start to move a bit. So what happens to that air? Well, I've already said it goes backwards and forwards, and it circulates in here. And of course, in order to get the lips vibrating, it doesn't matter which way the air is moving. The instrument's got air in it already. We just need to get it moving. And traditionally, we blow to make the air start moving, but the air comes backwards, like I said. So let's see what happens if we don't blow. We make the air start off going the other way. Air will still go out as well. So let's see. So I'm going to play the trumpet now by sucking. I don't recommend doing this if you've not cleaned your instrument out for a while, or you had a curry last night, or something like that. But just be careful if you're trying this. Okay, so this is sucking. Okay, not that successful, but you can see you have to. It's really weird doing that because you have to blow out before you start playing, whereas normally we have to breathe in before we start playing. So it's like back to front. But anyway, you can see from doing that makes the trumpet sound. Why am I talking about all this? Well, the question was, how do I keep my chops in shape? I make sure that airstream, when I'm blowing the trumpet, is finely tuned. It's efficient. So you might think, if you listen to me, that I was really playing hard all day, but actually I'm being quite clever with it because I'm making resonance on the sound, and I'm not blowing up. If you blow really hard, what's the point? Look at seeing the size of the hole on that mouthpiece. It's only a little tiny hole. We can't. If you try and blow lots of air down a little tiny hole, you're not going to get it all down there. So it just creates tension. Release the tension. Blow good air, a good controlled air, letting the air come out, at a uniform pace. So when we're playing a long note, it's really straight like that and not going like that kind of thing. Okay, get it really straight. So practicing long notes is really good, and it's good for your stamina. So when I start playing high on the trumpet, and I might have some high notes to play on a recording session or a gig or whatever, I'm actually, what I'm doing is I'm not working as hard as if I was playing some low notes in some ways, because I'm just speeding the air up. It's like going, you can all do that, can't you? And what happens when you do that, or if you whistle and go, you can get this kind of feeling that your tongue's moving up in your mouth. Well, it is. And what it's doing is it's compressing the air. It's like pressing the end of a hose pipe and making the water squirt out a bit further. But it's actually happening inside your mouth, not pressing the lips together. It's controlling the size of the mouth cavity, the oral cavity. And so as I go up the scale, if you watch, I'm going to put some reverb on now. There you go. Listen to that. Ooh. Right, okay. So now I'm going to do a scale of G. And just, if you can see my chops, just watch what happens. Now, I'm not Superman, but you could see, hopefully, that it didn't look as though that was too difficult for me to do that. And that's anybody that plays trumpet or cornet, hang on. You'll know that that's quite a high note.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so all I'm doing is changing the airspeed. So that is how I use my stamina. I use my air, and I'm very clever with my air. I try not to push on too much. I try not to get too tense across here, so everything's all tensed up, because it's energy. It's energy which we don't need to use. Blowing too hard is too much energy. We want to keep the energy there, but just, as a lot of people say this, but especially one of the conductors that I've worked for, he goes, just keep a lid on it. And I know exactly what he means. He means it's like having a car that can go at 200 miles an hour, but on the motorway you're driving it at 70. It's just nice. It's just ticking over. And that's what you have to be like when you're a trumpet player. You know, make the sound exciting without blowing absolutely too hard, you know. And of course, you get lots of young players that are enthusiastic and they blow really hard and they think, yeah, this is what you do in a big band, and it just doesn't swing. It's you know, it's like a lead balloon. It doesn't really get off the ground. But you take it easy and you make something. You know, there's a fantastic trumpet player who has been a great inspiration to me. His name is Yuan Razy, and he was the first trumpet at the MGM Studio Symphony Orchestra. So you hear him on all the Tom and Jerry films and stuff like that. But he played on all the MGM musicals like Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly. And any of you that seen any of those films, you know, some great trumpet playing. Check those out.
I think he was on Rocky as well, wasn't he? At some
He
point.
was on Rocky. He actually played. I mean, I've played on quite a few. I've played on a few hundred films, I think, but he's played on something like 3,900 films. Now that's a lot of films, and that's not just playing the trumpet on. That's actually playing first trumpet. So check him out, Yuan Razy. But he used to say something to his students, which I love, and I try and say it to my students. I try and demonstrate this, and that is, he used to say, when you play, roar softly. And I think that's really good because you can get the intensity in the sound, but you can play quietly, and it sounds exciting because music has to mean something, and it has to touch people. That's what it's about, you know.
Absolutely. And as Mike says there, it's about efficiency of air and also just concentrating on your sound as well.
Yeah.
I always say an analogy like taking a penalty in football. If you go and hit it as hard as you can and it goes over the bar, it's not a good penalty. A good penalty, you'll pick your spot and you'll hit it, you know, the desired amount to get it past that goal in. It's all about control and that efficiency of air. So yeah, really, really good advice there, Mike. Just one thing before we're going to show you a couple of videos actually of some students playing, but one question somebody's asked, and I think this is related specifically to lockdown at the moment, is what would you do to keep your chops in from a daily or weekly basis? I know we've covered a bit of it there, but basically a warm-up routine perhaps that you might do.
Well, my warm-up routine is kind of based on those ideas, and one thing that I do, which is pretty simple to do, is I take my tuning slide off in the morning, and I get my mouthpiece, and I do that blowing the air, and I enter the mouthpiece into the lead pipe, into the receiver, and I just wait for my lips to vibrate naturally just with the lead pipe, because obviously this is less resistance than the whole instrument, just the lead pipe. You can see I've removed this bit here, and if my lips start to vibrate well to that, then I know that they're starting to work. So an example would be like this. So I would start off by doing that, and then I would start doing something which was kind of my saviour after my accident, but I didn't discover it until I was about 23, and that was a system called the Louis Maggio system, and I didn't realise until I in more recent years that when I got a proper book, I only got some like half edited photocopy of a book, which, you know, in those days you couldn't actually get the book, and somebody just had got it and they copied it. They said, you can't buy this anymore. But so yeah, I used to do this thing, and it's actually based on using pedal notes to get the throat open. The throat has to be really open, so get the throat open, and again the tongue position, and getting the air speed, because when we play high we need fast air, when we play low we need lots of air. When we play high we need fast air, not very much. You know, you can go, I know those are not proper notes, but I'm not even taking a breath in to play those, whereas if I was going to play a bottom C, I've got to take a breath in. Okay, so I would do some exercises based on those arpeggios down to pedal notes and some attempts up to high notes, and I'd probably do about 15 to 20 minutes practice, and then I'll go and do something else, and then I'll do another 15 to 20 minutes practice later on in the day. Now normally I wouldn't be able to do that, and neither would you, but you know, at the moment you might be able to do practice like that, and it's really good at building up your chops and keeping your chops in shape. Now, it's going to be very interesting for me when I go and do a gig, if I ever go and do a gig again, which I hope I will. But it's going to be very interesting to see how that stamina and how my chops actually feel. The other thing I've been doing recently is I've been working on keeping these things in shape. This muscle that goes around here, the orbicularis muscle, is something which we have to keep in shape, because when there's intense pressure of air wanting to come out of our mouths, as in airspeed when we're playing high, this needs to be in shape to compress the air further, not just the tongue position, not just that, but the compression there as well. So that's in lockdown, and in practice to keep your chops in, I'm doing exercises with that. And I've actually, over there, I've got like this little tire gauge with a rubber tube, and I stick it in the end of my mouthpiece, and like if you get some water in your mouth, I bet you've all done this. You might have been swimming or something. You get some water in your mouth, and you've got one of your friends next to you, and you just go like that, and you squirt the water out your mouth. You don't blow it out your mouth. You just squirt it out like that. That's compression of those muscles. So if you want to feel where those muscles are, just try doing that. Or what you can do is you can put your finger right over the end of your mouthpiece, put your mouthpiece on, and just blow from your mouth, not from down below, just from, and it strengthens that up. The other thing you can do is I've got a pen here. When you're watching your next Netflix series, sitting down watching, 25 episodes of something, I don't know. You put your pen in your mouth, and you just sit there with a pen or a pencil in your mouth. And what you can do is you can actually go move it up and down like that, not with your teeth, with your lips. Okay, that also works those muscles. So those are things which you can do to keep your chops going and keep them in. And also, if you haven't done those things before, they're actually going to start building your chops. So when we eventually come out of this lockdown, you're all going to be so strong, and you're going to sound amazing.
Let's hope so. And some great tips for everybody to do there as well. Keep those muscles in shape with those tips that Mike's given you there. Mike, just before we do go to the videos of the children playing, which we're going to just have a little comment on, I just wanted to ask you, because we spoke about the film work that you've done, just about the orchestral work you've done. And I guess most recently, the one that's most celebrated perhaps is the wonderful John Wilson Orchestra. Has become really well known as synonymous now with the Proms and so on, and how you've got into there, and any great stories perhaps of tours or anything that you might have done with them.
Sure, yeah, we did sort of 10 years at the BBC Proms, but the thing about the John Wilson Orchestra is that it existed quite a long time before that point. But my first foray into professional orchestras was actually when I was still at college, and whilst I was at college, we did Mahler's Fifth Symphony. And any of you that know into your Mahler, I'm talking about Gustav Mahler, not Glenn Mahler. Sorry, that was a feeble attempt at a joke. But Mahler, famously, his Fifth Symphony is very highly features the trumpet. And in fact, it starts off with a trumpet solo. So any of you that have heard that, and the trumpet player just plays it completely on his own. The conductor walks on and just goes like that to the trumpet. Anyway, I did that at college, and my trumpet teacher at the time, who was a member of the BBC Symphony Orchestra, he was away on tour, and so when the concert took place, he couldn't hear it. So a few weeks later, he came into college, and he went into the college library, and he got a cassette recording. Cassettes were plastic cases that had this tape in, magnetic tape, and that's what we used to listen to music on as well as records. It was fantastic when we were younger. I wish it still had these things. They'll come back one day. No, they won't. But they were amazing, really. Anyway, he picked up a copy of this cassette recording, and he took it into work in his latest Walkman. This is before there were iPods and phones and stuff to play music on, and these Walkmans, you put the cassette into this little machine, you had a little strap on your shoulder, and you could walk down the road with a little pair of headphones on, and you got hi-fi quality sound. And so he was in work listening to this recording, and the principal trumpet of the orchestra came up and said, "What are you listening to there?" And he said, "Oh, I'm listening to one of my students, Mike Lovatt, play Mahler's Fifth." He said, "Let me have a listen." So he put the headphones on to listen. He said, "Oh, no, okay." And a few days later, I got a call. I was still a student at college, but I got a call to go and do Belshazzar's Feast, which is an amazing composition by William Walton, at the Albert Hall. And I joined the BBC Symphony Orchestra to do that. And I did my first prom in 1983, I think it was, or 84. And amazing to be there with an orchestra like that, working under a conductor called Sir John Pritchard. And as time went on, I did less and less classical work, and the problem is you do get pigeonholed. But back in about the mid-90s, I got asked to go to the St John Smith Square in London to do a concert with an orchestra with this young guy who'd come out of the Royal College, John Wilson. And we played the music of somebody called Robert Farnan, who was an amazing Canadian trumpet player who came over to the UK and settled in the UK and became one of the most fabulous composers and arrangers of real proper light orchestral music. And I got asked to do this, and it was John Wilson was the conductor. And we hit it off really well. He really liked the way that I played and the sound that I made. And so he eventually decided to get an orchestra together to start playing some of the MGM scores, which he'd been transcribing from the films themselves, because the music didn't exist. So John would painstakingly sit down on a Sunday afternoon and start listening to and keep winding back and listening to a bit more, and wind back and listen to it again. I mean, one thing that is on YouTube of me playing is a thing called The Sandpiper, which is The Shadow of Your Smile. And there's a middle section in that where there isn't a trumpet solo, but there's the brass play this kind of chorale-like thing. And he told me that 2 bars of that took him 3 days to actually get right. So there's a lot of work went into that. And John started to transcribe this stuff. We did a concert at the Royal Festival Hall, and eventually he got taken on by this guy called Tom Croxton, who was a manager. And Tom said, I'm going to try and get the orchestra to the proms. And there was a control at the proms called Nicholas Kenyon, who said that no, the John Wilson Orchestra, although they were very good, they would never play at the BBC proms. And so Tom walked away from Broadcasting House with his tail between his legs, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and he looked up at the sky and he thought, no, I'm really going to make sure now that they do get to the proms. And about 3 years later, Nicholas Kenyon left the BBC proms, and who's the guy? Roger Wright took over, and Tom went to see Roger Wright, and Roger said, yeah, okay, next year, live on BBC Two television, 2.5 hours. And you know that first concert in 2009 it was? I mean, I don't know how many million people, but I had, and I'm not kidding you, I had up to almost 1,000 messages, you know, whether it's via email or text or from people I know, from people I don't know, about that performance that night. And it was like, when we actually started, and there's a pregnant pause at the start of that concert because John's looking, because it was live, he was waiting for a green light on his conductor's podium, and it didn't come on for ages. So there's like this waiting, and then we started this overture, and it went da, 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 and it was like somebody had set light to touch paper, and this thing just went off, and it was the most amazing night. I mean, the orchestra played loads better than that in loads of other concerts, but that first prom in 2009 was an overnight hit, really, but it wasn't because the orchestra had been going for years. But I'm very proud of all the work I did with the John Wilson Orchestra. It was something that I always wanted to do, to play in an orchestra like that. And really, for me, my whole career had sort of come full circle, and I was managing to play in an orchestra which not only played classical-esque stuff, but also you could turn over the page and all of a sudden you have to play swing. And it was that's what that orchestra's about. And the brass section was chosen of players that could do that, you know, adapting from, you know, Gordon Campbell on first trombone, adapting from playing something pop-om like this to like to that. And that's what it's about.
It's brilliant, thanks very much. And again, if you haven't heard of the John Wilson Orchestra, mainly for the younger students, please look them up. It's an absolutely wonderful orchestra. As Mike says, it does all kinds of music, from old film scores and so on, Tom and Jerry and so on and so forth. So yeah, please do listen to it.
If you look at the Tom and Jerry clip, if none of you have seen any of the John Wilson before, that's what I'd say look at. That's had like, I don't know, 80 million views or something on YouTube, and it's a whole sort of 12-minute medley of all stuff from various Tom and Jerry films. But the most incredible thing about that music is that when you listen to it, it's like you're watching the cartoon. You don't need the cartoon because the music is so descriptive. It depicts exactly what's going on the screen, which is a genius of Bradley who wrote that stuff.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. We're going to move on a little bit now, guys. This is a bit I'm slightly worried about because those that do know me, I'm a little bit of a technophobe, but I'm going to try and share my screen. Now, over the last few days, a few students from Solihull have recorded themselves playing. One of the reasons we got them to do this is because they've done some exam pieces, and I know the exams are going to be very different over the course of the next few months, I would imagine, at least, with people having to record themselves remotely and then send them into examiners. So we thought, whilst we got Mike here, it would be a brilliant opportunity for us just to show some of these students playing, and perhaps Mike could comment on them. I also thought this would be a really nice chance for everybody else. If you would like to write in the chat, perhaps congratulatory messages to those playing, because I think they've been really brave to actually film themselves and send it in. And Mike's not going to critique the person necessarily, but just talk a little bit generally about the music. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. You can now see my screen. I'll get rid of that. And I'm going to go to Oscar Polton Smith. Now, Oscar is in the chat, so we'll say a proper thank you to him and well done after. Oscar's pupil of Mr. Ball, so thank you, Mr. Ball, for sending this in. And this is a piece called Call, which is a grade 4 piece, which I believe many of you will know. Now, let me just set this up, and I need to check that I'm sharing my audio. So I'm hoping you can all
hear. I'll just mute now, so I don't mess the sound up.
Oh, well, thank you, Mike. I'm hoping you can all hear this. For those with cameras on, if it starts, you can put my mind at rest by just giving me a quick thumbs up. That'd be great. But I'll play it for you now. So thank you for doing this, Oscar, and I hope you all enjoy it. So I'm just going to stop the share there. And yeah, a round of applause for Oscar. Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, Oscar.
Brilliant, Oscar. Well done. I'm just going to put my screen back to large. Hopefully we can all see Mike again now. So
yeah, I can see Oscar as well on my screen. So bravo, Oscar. That's, of course, cool. And it comes from West Side Story, the musical by Leonard Bernstein. I've performed that on numerous occasions. We actually did it at the proms with the John Wilson Orchestra, but it wasn't televised that year because the rights to the Bernstein West Side Story show is actually being taken over by Steven Spielberg. This is a bit from, Steven Spielberg has got the rights, and he's supposed to be doing a remake of the film. I don't know how you can better the film that was done in the 1950s, but or 60s, whenever it was. But yeah, Spielberg's going to do it. So the Leonard Bernstein estate are very hot on anything to do with Bernstein and royalties and what have you. So we weren't allowed to put it on the television, but it was on the radio. And a couple of years ago, I played it at the Edinburgh Festival with a conductor called Sir John Elliott Gardner and the Scottish Chamber Orchestra. And every time I play that piece, Cool, you were doing it as well, Oscar. I'm tapping my foot, it's great. So one thing that you're doing there is you're getting a really good feel. And the rhythm is so important in that kind of music. You know, da da beat up, da 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 da. You know, and so when you're going to play something like that, always, you know, when we play any kind of music, we're trying to emulate the human voice. And of course, this is a song, you know, boy, cool, whatever the lyrics are, something like that. And you know, I'm not a great singer. I'm singing to you now, but I always sing something before I play it, whether it's in my head or out loud. So I would encourage you to have a go at singing it. Do you sing at all? You can just nod your head because I can see you, or you can shake your head and say no. Do you sing at all? I'm not asking you to do it now.
That's for you, Oscar.
Oscar, can you do a bit of singing? Do you? Great. Well, you know, practice singing, practice the rhythms, because then you can start to. If you can sing something, you know, half decent, then you can play it really well. Okay. So one thing I would suggest doing to you, is to make it even better than it is already, is to do that, do that. Now I'm singing it do that, do that. I'm not going da wa dia da da, because that is what we might call slurring, and it's like scooping up to notes. But if we go do da do da do da do da, and by doing that we're connecting notes, but we're actually tonguing them all. So it's all about the articulation. You see, like that, I'm actually tonguing the notes. It just makes it sound a bit crisper rather than going like. If you slur like that, it's not quite as crisp. You see, did you hear that? Hear the difference? So next time you play it, just have a little experiment with that. Sing it through a couple of times. You do it with the track, you know. You don't have to sing it to anybody apart from yourself, so you don't have to get embarrassed about it. You just do it, you know. Do it when you're having a shower or something like that, you know. And then get your trumpet out and right, okay, I sang it like that. I'm going to play it like that. But I thought your rhythm and your pitch was really good. And just keep the air going. Remember, the air has to carry on right to the end of the note. You know, keep the intensity of the sound out, and it'll sound fantastic, I'm sure.
Great, thank you again for that, Oscar. And as Mike says, always just singing through music before you get it. I remember reading about the great Derek Watkins that we mentioned earlier, that I heard that whenever he would go on a session, before he even played a note of any of the music, he would look at it first, and whether he sang it out loud or in his head, but he would just internalise the music.
Yeah, definitely. And he used to get a pencil out and decide how he was going to phrase it and what markings he was going to put on there. So again, Oscar, you can put little things, I'm sure you do already, but get a pencil out and mark things on your music. Like, you know, I draw little funny pictures and stuff like that to remind me to do certain things. Because even if you know a piece and you've played it loads and loads of times, you can still forget to do certain things. And if it's there in front of you, all you got to do is concentrate on what's in front of you and get on with it. You know, I used to work with a fantastic drummer called Mike Smith, amazing drummer. And when he was 18, he was a drummer in the BBC Radio Orchestra, an incredible musician. And his reading ability was amazing. They'd hand out some music to him, and he'd just play it perfectly first time. And I said to him, Mike, how can you do that? And he said, well, it's all there in front. As long as the part's right and you've got some markings on what you need to have, all you've got to do is concentrate and look at the music, and then you'll get it right. And I thought, actually, that's dead right. Because it is as simple as that. Concentrate on what you're doing.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen again, guys. So this time I think we'll go to a trombone player, if I can get this out of the way, which is Eleanor Page. Eleanor actually plays for Jazz Matters, so you're going to hear a performance of a little bit later. This is a piece called Jute Hoot, which some of you may know from Mark Nightingale, who I know Mike knows very well. And this is actually a grade 6 piece, I believe. So I'll set this one up, hopefully. Make Eleanor big. And again, if you could give me a thumbs up once more when it starts playing, if you can hear it, I appreciated it last time. Thank you. again. Well done, Eleanor. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Round of applause. And again, if you want to leave any nice comments in the chat for Eleanor, I think that'd be really appreciated. Thank you, Eleanor. I'll hand back over to Mike.
Eleanor, I'm just seeing if I can see you on the screen. I don't think I can, but well done. You know what sounds amazing on that is actually the sound that you make. You make a fantastic sound. It's so centered, and the pitch is so wonderful on it. So bravo for that. And I liked your rhythm as well. The rhythm was really good, and the articulation was good. So how could you get better on that? Well, one thing you can do is try not to rush any of the quavers. Now, I happen to have this book in front of me here. Look,
just sorry to interrupt, Mike, but I have my phone next to me. Someone, Mr. Mull, has just texted me. I'm thinking of the next piece. I think this one is Passion Fruit Samba. So just in case anybody's
I was just
going to look
to
at
say that.
Yeah, thank you.
And a few years ago, I got asked by Warwick Music, who put this book out, to do some demonstrations on their instrument, the P trumpet. And in case there's anybody from Warwick Music there, I won't say anything. But anyway, I did actually do these recordings at the Birmingham Conservatoire, and they're little videos, and they were supposed to be for people who buy P trumpets, and they get a little code to say, okay, right, you can download Mike Lovatt playing this piece, and give you an idea of how to play it. And anyway, they all ended up on YouTube, so you can actually see me playing these things, and some of them I sort of say give some ideas of tips of how to play them. But with this one, they kind of used it as the sort of theme tune of all the different clips. But so what I'm going to do is, because I've got the music for this here, I'll just play a bit of this just to show you what I'm on about. So I'm talking about gripping the tempo. That's the word I'm going to use, grip the tempo. So it doesn't mean rushing, doesn't mean dragging either. But, you know, it's very easy. You could go... You know, wrong notes, wrong glasses. I'm not going to rush the quavers this time. I'll take my glasses off so I might get the notes right. So it's that. This is another rhythm, this one. Instead of going... It's very subtle, really, but by gripping the tempo, all of a sudden, we get a so much better picture of where the beats are. You know, and a samba's a dance, so we want to feel as though we want to start dancing. So that's the way that you could really get that to just that next level. But like I say, the thing that really impressed me about your playing was such a great sound on the trombone. So bravo.
Yeah, thank you, Eleanor. Sounds really, really good. And once again, great advice from Mike. I have one more video of the students playing to share with you. So once again, I'm going to go to my share screen. And this is Lucy Knight, who's going to perform, or recorded herself performing the Turkey. Let me just get rid of that. That's for later. Again, this is from the Mark Nightingale book. And this is a grade 5 piece for those who are looking at taking grades. Line that on here. Okay, here we go. Fantastic. Thank
really
you.
Good.
Just hit stop share there.
Great. So yeah, Lucy, just seeing if I can see you. It's just nice to see the person that was doing it.
Oh, I can see her. In fact, if I should have done this with the others, because I'm going to try and add a spotlight, which puts Lucy there. So
Oh, yeah,
apologies
there
to
you are,
Oscar
Lucy.
and Eleanor. I should have done it this way both times, but
Yeah.
here's Lucy.
Okay, it's the same backdrop, Lucy, so it's definitely you, I can tell. Nice to hear you playing the flugel. Do you play trumpet as well? You nod your head or shake it, or yeah, you play trumpet as well. Great. The flugel sounded lovely. Again, you know, I must say that the sounds that you all making are really great, and that's the really, really important thing. You know, the sound we make. Don't forget it, but forget range for now and other things. It's the sound which we make. It's so important. And you've got lovely sound and really good pitch as well. You know, centered notes. Flugels can be really difficult to with pitch. Really difficult with pitch. You know, you can get the odd note that's a bit flat and what have you, but you did brilliantly to get that. Now, again, because I've got the book here, I've got my copy. Now, can you see all the little notes on there, little pencil markings? That's because there's a company called Music Gurus who've done some online kind of lessons, and I did quite a few things in this book of different sort of jazzy styles using this book. And so I put different things in that I was going to talk about. And one of the things that I put on, and it is actually all marked in the part which Mark wrote, and that is the difference between a long note and a short note. Now, if you look at like the third bar, so it goes dum bum 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 ba dum bum ba dum ba dum. Now you kind of played it like this, but there's nothing wrong with this. You went, yeah, but what really is marked, what Mark Nightingale put on there is. Now you hear how snappy and bright and crisp I'm making the second note. Now I'm not playing it like this either. I'm connecting the notes, almost as though I'm slurring them, but I'm tonguing the second one. Like that. So what I would do is go through that piece with a fine tooth comb and just make sure that all the notes have got that little dot on them and nice and crisp and tongue. The sound you're making, the rhythm's all lovely, but just if you're going to do it for an exam, the examiner might be sat there, you know, with this piece of music in front of them, and they'll think, oh yeah, they didn't observe those short notes there. So just, you know, add that in, and it adds style and character to the piece as well. And that's what we're trying to do. It's the turkey. You can imagine I don't know what kind of note. Turkeys go like that or something.
Like
they
that.
might make some short sound. So
yeah.
Imagine that you're a turkey on the flugelhorn.
Not on the Christmas table.
No, not on the Christmas. Definitely not on. Yeah. So yeah, what was that? That Tommy Cooper said, "I feel like a turkey sitting next to a packet of Paxo listening to Christmas carols." When he was talking about being nervous. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well done, Lucy. It sounds great.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lucy. And again, for all the students, just I know we're on mute, but a round of applause for all three of you. And thanks to Mr. Bull for sending those in as well, much appreciated. We are coming towards the end, but what I'm going to do now is share a bit of a special video, which is with Mike's permission. And then we'll come back and just talk a little bit more before wrapping it up. This video, Mike very kindly offered to do, and so I got some of the members of one of the jazz bands from Solihull Jazz Matters to perform, and all the kids sent in their videos, a lot like a lot of the lockdown videos you've seen recently. But this one's quite special because this has been recorded just for today's workshop. Obviously, this story is all about Mike and inspiring you, but I must say it was actually this piece. I've told Mike this story. This was the piece which inspired me to play the trumpet, walking in to see the Midland Youth Jazz Orchestra and the conductor, John Ruddock, playing this piece is the whole reason I picked up the trumpet and decided to play. I went up to him and said, will you give me lessons? To which he did, and we remain great friends to this day. When we decided to do this workshop, it seemed like a brilliant idea to get Mike to perform this for you. So this is in fact a world premiere. When I play it, I must warn you, it might be a bit glitchy with the video. I'm hoping that the audio will be fine. I have tried this before, but with Mike's permission, what I'll do after is send out the YouTube link so perhaps you can watch it in its full quality. But it's a piece called Evergreen, and it's one of the bands from Solihull Jazz Matters who has recorded it in lockdown with Mike. And as I say, this is going to be a very special moment. I really hope you enjoy it. So I'm going to share my screen one last time. And I must say, for any members of the band who are in, you've not seen it either. So this really is a first for everybody. So please enjoy.
I just want to thank Anthony Jones and everyone involved in this project for inviting me to be with you for this class, and also giving me the privilege of playing one of these great tunes, Evergreen, arranged by Bob Ajada. Of course, it's written for Bobby Shue, and it's really lovely. It's the first time I've ever played it. It's great to play it with the band. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did.
Well, I think I can speak on behalf of all of us to say that yes, we did. So thank you, Mike.
Oh, thank you. It was great fun to do that, and actually, for years I've thought I'll be great to play that piece, but I've never seen a score of it or anything. I've heard people do it, and of course I've heard Bobby play it, and you mentioned John Ruddock as well, and John Ruddock, what a great trumpet player and a great educator and inspirer of young people and young musicians. So thanks to him as well for sort of enabling us to get that music, presumably.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. I've just got a couple of questions as we start to wrap things up, Mike. And one of the questions I've had come through, and I'm just looking at my sheet as I did it, I thought it's an interesting one, which says, when did playing the trumpet become your passion? Was it immediate or was it something that grew? And I think this could be a good one for the students to hear.
That's a great question, actually. I think it was immediate. I think that picture of Eddie Calvert on the front of that record, that was like, I want to do that, I want to do that, I want to do that. And there were these pointers, there were these markers, and another one was going to hear the Sid Lawrence Orchestra live at a ballroom. Actually, it was a Saturday night dance at Trentham Gardens, which is in Staffordshire. No, ballroom was demolished. The gardens are still there, and my mum and dad took me there one Saturday night. Chicken and chips in a basket, all that stuff. And the band were on the stage, and they had a somebody playing an electronic organ for the first kind of set, and the curtains were closed. And I'll never forget hearing the Sid Lawrence Orchestra start their theme tune, and with Sid walking out the front, and that was another defining moment. That was like, that's my passion, that's what I want to do. And during lockdown I thought, is this what it's going to be like when I retire? And it's like, when do you retire? That's the other thing. Do you actually carry on doing this? And I can't really imagine life without it. But I suppose in the last 12 months we have imagined life. Well, we've experienced life without a lot of it. And there's a big big hole in my life. I'm lucky. I've got two fantastic kids and grown-up kids, and I've got an amazing, talented musician wife as well. And but despite that, I really miss the lads.
Absolutely.
And I found out something as well in lockdown that that's why it's nice to do something like that last track, because when I play on my own, I don't sound very good, and I need to be with other people. and so that's what I've discovered. I sit here for hours playing on my own. I think, oh, that doesn't sound very good. But I suppose if I went, oh, no, that sounds great, then I'd put the trumpet away and go and do something else. But we've got to every day we've got to strive to be better. We never get the hang of it. If we get the hang of it, then I'll nip down to the Thames and I'll chuck my trumpet in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did a Jazz Matters, that the band you just heard, did a concert with Matt Ford and Russell Bennett. It's only a couple of years ago, and I remember Matt Ford saying on stage, imagine the world without music and what a sad place it would be. And we're not there yet, but certainly this year, if it's taught us anything, it's just how much it's missed when it's not there. So yeah, once again, thank you to you. So I guess to kind of start to just round things up, Mike, is there any advice, kind of general advice you would like to give to the students out there today about their playing and the journey they might be embarking upon?
Well, what I would say is enjoy it. That's the reason that you're doing it, first and foremost. It's something to enjoy. It's something, not in these times, but it's something that you do together. It's the community, it's the camaraderie, it's the fun, it's all these things together. And it's making music and entertaining people so they have fun and they have great times together. Music creates memories for people, great memories. It's like, sometimes you get smells, don't you, that remind you of certain times. You hear a piece of music and it reminds you of a certain time in your life or a certain person or a certain feeling, and that is incredibly important, and that's what music is about. So experience that, and if you get bitten by that bug and all you can think about is music and playing and music and playing and music and playing and music and playing, then go for it and do it. My daughter is she's going to be 18 in a couple of weeks, and she's a dancer. She's been doing contemporary dance at a college. I live in Hertfordshire, in Watford, and it's like a sort of sixth form kind of age, and the course is a bit like that as well. But she's applying for musical theatre courses, and last May she came down from her bedroom and said, "Oh, Dad, I want to be on stage. I want to be in a West End show." And I said, "Darling, it's like the West End is really, it's had it at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen, and it's a really difficult business. There are loads of people who are really talented who are trying to do this as well." And I stopped and I thought, hang on a minute. She really wants this. She really wants it. She'd drawn this little chart out of where she wanted to apply and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm pleased to say that she's done 3 online auditions and she's been recalled for all 3. So we're hoping that she's going to get in one of these places. And so that's what I'd say to you. If that's something you really want to do, you do it. My mum said to me, "What are you going to do when you come out of music college? If you go to music college, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to become a professional trumpet player." And she said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to try really hard." And I could hear my dad like teaching somebody clarinet downstairs as my mum was saying this. And my mind, when my daughter said this, I went back to that point, and my mum just said, "But you know that if that's what you really want to do, then your mum and dad will support you as far as you can go with it, And thankfully, they lived to see me do reasonably well, and I was managed to pay some of that back to them."
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Mike. And someone's just written in the chat such powerful words, and I guess like music, words can be very powerful. So thank you so much.
Can I just do one little bit of advertising?
Absolutely, please do.
Just a little commercial moment.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I recorded my first solo album. I've played on a lot of albums with all sorts of people, weird and wonderful people, some famous, some completely not and forgotten about. But this album I'm very proud of, and I did it with a brass band called Foden's Band, who are based in Sandbach. And the arrangements were done by, I've already mentioned his name, a great friend of mine, Colin Skinner. And basically it's a brass band with a difference, because it's a brass band with a rhythm section. So Matt Skelton, who's with the John Wilson Orchestra, Jeremy Brown, the same, and on bass, and a piano player called Graham Harvey, world-class rhythm section, and a lot of arrangements of all sorts of things. Some things you might know, some original things, and also there's some special guests appearing on there, one of which is Philip Cobb, who was the principal trumpet of the London Symphony Orchestra, now principal trumpet of the BBC Symphony, and Danny Marsden, who's the first trumpet player in the show Wicked in the West End, and there's all sorts of things on there. And there's a nice little booklet with some pictures of me, and there's all these words, some of which you've heard about tonight, and some of my influences, Maurice Murphy, who I didn't mention but earlier on, all about all the music. And this CD is available as a download if you like to do that kind of thing. But what I was talking about, a CD like this, I spent hours designing this kind of idea of having this open booklet, and there's some nice pictures of my father-in-law. That's my dad there when he was in the garrison, when he was the garrison organist in Malaya, and back in the day. And it's called 56 Degrees North, and it's available on my website. And if you want a copy, go on the website. There's a PayPal button. I send them out from here. I can always sign it and put something nice in there for you, and you can sit and read all that and listen to it if you want. Don't forget, it's not long till Christmas.
Absolutely. Who wouldn't want to? And I hope you don't mind me saying this, Mike, and I hope the teachers from Warwickshire and Coventry don't mind me saying this as well, but I know Mike does do online lessons as well, and I've sent pupils, not to Mike, but to other West End players and things during this time of lockdown, and it supplements me as a teacher, and I know people like Mike with so much knowledge can really help us as teachers and inspire you a little bit more. So I hope you don't mind me saying that, Mike, but they can contact you through your website and things. And
absolutely. There's a website email address, but it's pretty simple to remember, and that's info@mikelovatt.co.uk. And the website has got all sorts of things on there. You can, hopefully it's still reasonably up to date. I do try and keep on top of that and keep renewing stuff on there. There's some YouTube clips, links to stuff that I've done on there as well. There's all sorts of things.
Thank you once again, Mike. Just a very quick summary of what you've all heard tonight then. And I've just made a couple of notes as we've gone through. The first note I made was that music is the backdrop of our lives. And I think it really is. And Mike's probably been there in that backdrop for many years, and many of you would have heard. I'm getting to know Mike, and he's an incredibly humble man, but he really is a wonderful, wonderful musician. So we're very, very lucky to have him here today. A couple of things Mike mentioned: listen to music. I remember not long after I first started teaching some 20 odd years ago, and I said to a band in front of me, younger kids, and I said, who's the best trumpet player in the world? And one kid put their hand up and said, you are Mr. Jones. Now, as much as I would like to believe that, my answer was they're not listening to enough trumpet players. Because they listen to trumpet players, go out there and listen to people like Mike and Derek Watkins and other people that have been mentioned. And then finally, it was that determination that Mike mentioned. If you want to be a musician, don't let anybody stop you. There's lots of different avenues you can go down. And finally, I was just thinking, it's not long, hopefully, that we'll be out of this lockdown. And if Boris Johnson on the 22nd of February turns around and says schools are open and bands can go back, let's hope, are you ready? If bands went back tomorrow, are you ready? If bands went back in a month's time, will you be ready? And if that instrument has sat in its case and gathered dust over this lockdown, and I know that things are very kind of different at the moment, and although you're spending more time at home, you're probably finding less time than you would normally have. But now's the time to get those instruments back out. And after this workshop and the inspiration that Mike's given us, get it out, play along to some CDs, tapes, records, whatever you can find, and listen to music and play. And as Mike says, it's about enjoyment, because we all want to get these bands back up and running before long. So I'm in a moment going to do something which I hope I don't regret, because I'm going to get everybody to unmute their mics and give Mike a huge round of applause. Once we've done that, if I could ask you all just to leave the meeting as you do that as well, and then it'll just be myself, Mike, and a couple of others left. That'd be absolutely great. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an amazing evening. Mike, you've been an absolute inspiration to everybody, including myself, that sat and listened to you tonight. So, everybody, you can unmute yourselves, and I think we deserve to give Mike a wonderful round of applause.
Really lovely to see you all, and it's so nice to get some applause, and that's something that I've really missed.
Yeah, almost like a concert.
It's a bit of food, isn't it,
Real. So thank you, everybody. I hope to see you all soon. Stay safe in the meantime.
Bye.
Bye, all of you.
Just going through all these messages that came in.